Welcome to Decades of Horror, the 1980s.
What is this bullshit? Them man-eating dust mops got us roped up tighter than a blue ribbon bull, and all you folks can do is stand here and play kick the can with some punk kid.
This is episode 284, recorded April 30th. Oh no, recorded May 1st, 2025.
Gruesome Magazine.
Jeff, deep in the throes of retirement.
It's Mayday,
loses
Mayday.
track of the dates. Yeah.
Mayday.
Every day, same as another.
I got one of those clocks right next to my TV that tells you the date, the time, the part of the day it is. Is it morning, afternoon, evening, or night? And the day of the week. Just in case. All right. Not that funny to anybody else. My name is Jeff Mohr, and this podcast is about horror films released between 1980 and 1989. Each episode, my co-host Bill Mulligan, Crystal Cleveland, and Chad Hunt and I will tackle another classic or not so classic film from this radical, gory, influential, and gruesome decade. Joining me tonight is Crystal Cleveland, actress and YouTuber. Crystal,
Yay.
how you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited about this one.
Oh,
Now that
good.
we get to do like the second.
It's
Yeah, this
okay,
one's
yeah.
better. This
Yeah.
one, this is my preference
Mhm.
for. So,
All righty.
yep.
Also with us is Chad Hunt, comic book artist, co-host of Decades of Horror, the all of them. How you doing, Chad?
Yay.
I am fine as wine.
Really?
Okay. That's.
Go ahead.
I don't know about all. That's weird. I'm scared.
Properly fermented. Is that what you're saying?
Not yet, no.
And also Bill Mulligan, writer, director,
Mm.
special effects guru, co-host of Decades of Horror, the 1970s, and a published author.
Oh, Rob.
Rob. And all around nice guy. How are you, Bill?
Oh, I'm near as beer. I'm fine.
What the heck? What is
I don't
happening
know.
here?
Well, he started-
Oh my God.
This,
Chad
I find
started
this,
it.
I find this intriguing that it really irritates Crystal for some reason.
Ugh. It's like, ugh. What is
Well,
wrong with you guys?
also
Just
joining
be
us-
unhappy like everyone else.
Yeah. Grr. I have to be careful what I say. Also joining us, special effects artist, mechanical, animatronic
Genius.
guru is Ralph Miller III. How you doing, Ralph?
I'm fit as a fiddle and ready to play.
There you go.
There we go. He's
I thought
like,
you were gonna-
he's like, I can't wait. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
I thought
I
you
had
were
to
gonna
have
go with,
something.
quicker than liquor.
I had to
And
have something.
Ralph will provide some special insights because he worked on this movie for
Yay.
the Kyoto.
Yes,
Movie.
I
Yay.
did. And
Blame him.
I'm delighted to be with all you peeps here celebrating Easter a little bit late.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
I know it's so funny. I was saying that too. I was like, this was just a little late for Easter.
Yeah, that'll be another 12 days before it goes public, but that's
Yeah.
that's okay.
It might come out on my birthday, May 12th.
Oh, yay.
What day is it? 30? Yes, it will. It will.
All right.
Cool.
Happy birthday.
All right.
Oh, shoot. Sean's birthday's come. Wow. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Shh.
Totally forgot.
I got a text. Crystal forgot your birthday.
Oh,
Okay.
man.
Oh, I always do.
All right. Our movie this episode is Critters 2, which I believe was just Critters 2 in the theater, but somewhere along the line they added the main course as a subtitle. Released in 1988, directed by Mick Garris, written by David Twohy and Mick Garris. The cast includes Scott Grimes, Leanne Curtis, or Leanne, Don Keith Opper, Barry Corbin, Terrence Mann, Sam Anderson, Lindsay Parker, Herta Ware, Lynn Shea, Roxanne Kernahan, and Eddie Deason. The production companies are New Line Cinema and Show Films. Filming location, Santa Clarita, California, even though it wasn't called that right then yet, was it?
Yeah, it was kind of at the transition. It was on the cusp of turning
okay.
from Saugus, joining in 3 other communities to become what is now known as Santa Clarita.
Aha.
So by the time the film was finished, it was probably Santa Clarita.
Okay, and filming dates are listed as September 8th to November 4th, 1987. Release date April 29th, 1988. Budget of $4.5 million. Box office $3.8 million.
Wah, wah.
That doesn't
And,
sound good, but they kept on making them, so I'm a little dubious.
But they got cheaper. They got
did.
cheaper.
They did.
Yeah.
Thanks to video.
they would direct
better
to
on
video, correct? Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, what I'm saying is that Critters 2 did much better on video than it did.
Oh,
on
I'm sure.
trailers.
I'm
You know,
sure.
that makes a lot of sense.
The synopsis: eggs of the small but voracious alien creatures called Krites are left behind on Earth, and after hatching, set their appetites on the small farm town of Grover's Bend. Now, this is one of those things that bothers me. Like, I think all the credits spell Krites with K, don't they?
That's how I've always seen it.
Really?
Yeah.
It
So
feels like it makes
whoever
more
wrote
sense
this,
to have it a C because
well, whoever wrote the synopsis didn't bother checking. Maybe, who knows? Anyway,
Yeah, it makes sense. That Krites would be short for critters than it would be with a
Yeah.
C, but you're, yeah. Hmm.
and this is the Xanthi, the I don't know what you call them. I'm trying to think of what some of those guys were in those cartoon shows. The head kazoo or something.
Oh, the Great Kazoo?
Head
The Great Kazoo
kazoo.
and the Flintstones, voiced by
Yeah.
Harvey Korman.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't make that connection, but you're right. That is kind of Great
Well,
Kazooey.
the body is a bit different. Obviously.
Yeah, they're quite a bit different, but it's still
It's a
made me
cool.
think.
It's a cool design. Look at those the multiple arms that actually makes sense. It's cool looking.
Yeah. So this is a Chris Biggs creature, and
Oh, okay.
and it was performed by Cynthia Garris, Mick Garris's wife, and she had a terrible time. In the first place, it was very confining. Now, she'd been in appliances before. Both Mick and Cynthia Garris had been in Michael Jackson's Thriller as zombies. However, this was much worse because not only could she not see or hear, but she couldn't breathe. Chris Biggs neglected to, well, the nose was covered. I mean, she did have a mouth she could breathe through, but anyway, she was freaking out, and Mick talked her through it, and they got the shots, and then and another thing that was a real nightmare though was that she had just exfoliated her skin that day.
Oh no!
Which means there were no oils in the skin whatsoever.
Oh.
So this meant that the glue really stuck very well.
Oh, hell
as,
yeah.
as far as application, not a problem. As far as removing the appliances with solvents,
oh.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Ralph, because I just assumed this was in like a miniature animatronic thing.
No. There was actually Cynthia Garris inside that contraption.
Boy, you got to give Mick Garris credit. I mean, usually when you have a director and his wife, casts his wife in a role, they give her something, flattering, and that sounds horrible.
Yeah.
Like Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
We've already given the credits, but I had this one too, which I thought was fun when they're at the burger joint, the Hungry Heifer. Something about that ketchup just anyway.
At
all right.
Hungry Heifer.
So it is
a bum steer.
Time for first impressions, and this is Crystal's pick.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love this movie.
Why did you pick? Okay, you love it. You love it.
Okay, and I've always loved this film. I love Critters. I like the whole series, even the not as good ones. This one is better than the first one. This one's probably my favorite overall. You do have Terrence Mann, but he's not in it enough for me personally. Yeah. But there's a lot more critters in it than the first film. Like, it's a significant increase. Mm-hmm. The feel of this one is also a little bit more comedic than the first one. So there's that, which I also enjoy. I think the quality of this film actually seems even a little bit higher, which is kind of wild since it's a sequel. But, then they start to go down. They don't all maintain this quality. But I mean, what can you say? Like this one's great. It's a very simple story, just like the first one. It's in this little town. He goes back to his little town to visit his grandma, and it's over Easter. And so I think that's fun. It's a nice Easter horror film for you. We don't really have very many of those, so that's kind of cool. There's a lot of people who get killed in this one. I do love the barn creature. It's funny when it rolls out, and everyone remembers that. And I do remember, I think Bill mentioned when we did the first one that he thought that was in. I was like, no, it's this one, because everyone remembers when they all join together and roll out, because it's iconic, obviously. And I don't know how this film is a PG-13, because you see total boobs. Like, no, I mean, this is crazy to me that this is PG-13. I don't understand it. That blows my mind.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the references, inappropriate, and then the boobs and everything. But,
I think
okay.
PG-13 was a little more forgiving back then.
Yeah, it was the
Apparently.
80s.
But I thought they
It was
would
the
change.
80s.
Yeah, that's wild to me, though. But yeah, I love this film. Honestly, like for anyone watching this, I would recommend watching the first one and the second one to determine whether you really like them, because I think the first one is good and I enjoyed it, but this one is a lot more fun and has a lot more critters and a lot more just effects in general. So I think this one's it just edges it out because it's just more fun.
Lot more critters.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Chad Hunt. I'm sure you've seen this before.
I have. I've rented this one and back in the day, and I was a big fan of the first one, and I like the first one, but this one is more. I think this movie gets compared to Gremlins a lot, or this franchise, but the Critters can take it a little bit further than Gremlins can. And I love it when they're talking and you got your little subtitles of the critters talking, and they're just these little foul-mouthed bastards that are more, and I find hilarious no matter what they're doing, even when they're eating people. I just find them hilarious. And this one has got a lot more comedy in it. It really leans heavy into the comedy part of it. But the critters' personalities and stuff are really what I love. And just to see them in more action, and we get the big giant ball of critters rolling around and cool stuff like that. And it's this one, I love the first one, but this one is more what I would be into. So with the foul language and boobs and all that kind of stuff. So
okay, thank you. Bill.
I was taught honesty as a young man.
Yes,
well, very
good. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is the film I thought I was going to see when we rewatched Critters, because I had seen them both, but this one's more memorable, so it's stuck in my mind. And I like to see, to me, it's great when a sequel builds on the first one and says, here's what worked, here's what didn't. It made enough money that we're actually going to get a decent budget this time. So they should have, the tagline with this should have been, Critters 2, chock full o' critters, because it's got lots and lots of them. They're really well made. I mean, the Kyoto brothers. I mean, what are you going to say? You expect no less. And when they hire people like Ralph Miller III to be on it, you're going to get quality. There's lots of good Critters action. There's not as much of the family dynamic that we had in the first one, but that's fine. We get to see some of the same actors back, and that's nice. There's some plausible things. It is an amazing coincidence that this boy comes back when completely
Yeah.
unrelated to him coming back, the critters show up again. There's that inevitable scene when everyone's trapped and the one loudmouth is like, he's the problem. They were gone. When he came back, they showed up. And normally when you watch that in the movie, you're like, shut up, old man. You don't know what you're talking about. But actually, I'd be like, let's hear him out because I think he's onto something here.
Just like they said about Tippi Hedren in The Birds.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have any problem until she came into town.
Well,
yeah.
And you'd be like, listen, lady, lots of people come into town. People come into town every day. The birds, this has only happened once. But if this was the second time Tippi showed up and the birds went crazy, it's like, yeah, I think maybe the problem is you, Tips. But I love the giant rolling critter. I love it when it rolled over people and then you see like their devoured corpse stripped of everything. It just reminded me of like when the remake of The Blob is rampaging through town, just slamming on people. And, that was a lot of fun. It's the nudity was both, and this is hard to pull off, gratuitous and absolutely integral to the plot. It made perfect sense that it would be there. And I appreciate that. I don't like it. I mean, it's not that it caused me any sleep at night, but I don't like it when they just, for no reason, let's have a scene that takes place in the girls' shower. Like, okay, I mean, what do you think? We're stupid. We know why you did this. There's no reason why they couldn't have had this conversation at a later date, but okay. But this one, yeah, it's fine. Of course, that's what's going to happen. She's not going to like regenerate her body with clothes on. I just like the fact that she just, without any embarrassment whatsoever, just goes stomping down the hill, butt naked, and the guy's chasing after her. You're going to need these clothes, Yeah,
I thought it was kind of weird that I totally missed that part because there she was naked, and then when they get to the house, she's got her.
Oh yeah, well, Charlie was carrying what was left of her clothes.
Oh, okay.
She busted out of them.
I understand you missing that reference because she is just walking down the hill.
I was
fairly shapely fanny. So
you know what? I'm sorry. I think Bill's onto something there. At the end of the first one that shows the eggs, right? The eggs were there. This looks like maybe it was maybe a year or two later.
2 years. Yeah.
2 years, and then Scott Grimes' character comes back into town, and all of a sudden the eggs hatch.
Yep.
I don't know the life cycle of a critter.
Now
but I'm assuming I think he had something to do with it.
Yeah. He's linked to them.
Just throwing that
out.
But
this is a lot of fun. It's very much an 80s film, but it's fun. And I'm with Crystal. Watch 1 and 2 together. What, you got too much going on? You can't devote 3 hours to watching some good critters action. This one feels less like a Gremlins ripoff. If it is a ripoff, it's a good one. There weren't very many good Gremlins ripoffs, but this one had a good effects team, a great effects team, and for a pretty modest budget, they pulled off a good story. The characters are likable. The Easter Bunny thing was funny. Eddie Deazen's always a welcome presence. I mean, I think this is just a real underrated. Having finally seen it again after quite a long time. And being able now to compare it directly to the first one, yeah, they did a really good job. It's disappointing that it didn't do as well at the theater. I'm not sure what was going on in '88 that this one didn't do well. But I can also see that this would be a big hit on videotape because I'm surprised that it didn't do as well because I remember going to the videotape to Blockbuster and there it was. The big ball of critters that every Blockbuster must have had 20 of them in the horror section. So good times.
They have little cardboard standees or something.
Yeah. Props. So thanks for, yeah, they did. This was a really easy one to market. That critter thing was really, really entertaining. So thanks for picking it, Crystal. I was, when you initially, I heard, oh, now we're going to do Critters 2. I'm like, okay, maybe this is going to the well one time too many, but no, this was a fun revisit.
All right. So Ralph,
yay.
As a viewer, what do you think of the movie? Or can you separate that?
Yeah, being completely impartial. Having worked on and gotten paid to work on the movie. Well, I think it succeeds at what it sets out to do. The cinematography, the music, the casting, the characters, the dialogue, I have no complaints. But if you're not into this kind of thing, I'm sure it would be a drag. If you want an opposing viewpoint, read what Roger Ebert had to say about it.
Yeah.
It's one of his most hated films, and he gave it 1 star.
I feel like, didn't he like the first one?
Actually, I think he did.
Yeah.
He said this one it didn't have any of the charm of the original, and it was completely unnecessary. Well, what sequel is not unnecessary when it comes down to it.
Yeah, like what?
I mean,
But if you're
necessary.
thing is-
if you're going to do a sequel, it's nice that it had double the budget. It, the effects budget was healthier, so they got to have more critters, and they got to be a little more sophisticated in how they were put together, and even the sculpting and the size of them and everything. And and the ambition of it too. I mean, it's still for $4 million, even in the 80s. I mean, they really got the bang for their buck on this one. And I think it's very enjoyable. Again, it is one of these films that I would have enjoyed very much, even if I hadn't had anything to do with it. I would still be happy to have this in my collection.
Okay, so why? And in that Fangoria, the article in that Fangoria, one of the, I forget who they're talking to, one of the Kyoto brothers. I thought that they said that they only had 8 creatures in the first one, 8 critters.
Yes.
And you made, I don't know, a lot.
Yeah, for this one, Stephen on a podcast said that they had 8 hero critters in this one. So the ones with all the functions, and that's not counting the baby critters, which were at least a dozen of those. But and then all the ones that were just furry balls. Excuse me. But they're aside from the 8 hero critters, adult critters, they had a large critter, and they had a critter ball, and they had about 30 to 40 background critters that were hand puppets, but they didn't have the facial articulation. So that's a lot. That's a lot for a movie on this budget. That's a pretty big scale project. Yes.
So while you're up here, I kind of,
I'm not going.
Well,
anywhere.
I want to hear about this because they must just differentiate that stuff. I found the same thing on. We're going to be doing the Giant Behemoth on Classic here.
Nice.
So they say all the filming takes place in this, like London, England, or in this one, it's in Santa Clarita. But really, there was a lot of stuff that took place someplace else, right? When you were doing the cut-ins for the effects and stuff, or not?
I honestly don't remember. That's odd because I would think I'd remember that kind of.
Okay. Well, you were. were you on location?
I think it was. I think it was all done in Santa Clarita.
Okay.
Yeah, because when they would cut away, close-ups. I mean, they were still in the environments, so they were on the sets. Yeah, it was all there as far as I know. I mean, aside from miniature effects and that sort of thing.
Well, I think all the stop motion stuff in Giant Behemoth was done in Pete Peterson's garage in California.
Yes. Yeah.
I remember right with Willis and Brian. Anyway, so what was it? What kind of stuff were you doing? You were on site. I could see you. You've got some pictures here of you doing stuff. Just you were just there to be doing puppeteering or whatever. I saw you making some repairs and whatever.
Yeah, right. So I was involved primarily in the mechanization of these things to make the facial expressions, and also I did some hand mechs, which you'll see later, and to puppeteer. That was basically what my job was. But yeah, you'd have to if one needed repairs, or if we were putting a skin on and replacing it with another one for some reason because it got mangled or it was savaged in the course of the plot of the movie. You'd use this solvents and glue on a new skin, that kind of thing. So yeah, there was some of that.
Did you pretty much roll right into Critters 2 after Killer Clowns from Outer Space, or was there a bit of a gap?
There was a little bit of time in between. I was actually contracted to work on a movie which at the time was called Teeny Weenies, a Stuart Gordon production, which became Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. But the original title, the working title was Teeny Weenies, and Stuart Gordon of Reanimator fame was going to direct it. He was involved in writing the script. So that was his baby. But it was going to be shot in Mexico City, and consequently, medical advice said it wouldn't be safe for him to be working at that altitude because that's a very high altitude, and it's also a very polluted city. So he unfortunately had to bow out of the project, and I think Joe Johnston took over, and the rest is history. It was a wonderful film, but it would have been quite an interesting departure from Stuart Gordon's usually really, really nasty, gross.
So that was right when you were doing.
So anyway,
you did a couple of Student Gordon movies and a couple of Kyoto Brother movies, right in that same.
See, and I was going to work on that for John Nolan, who had contributed to From Beyond, which I worked on for John Buechler. Do we need this minutia? This has nothing to do with the movie. But anyway, but it was delayed because of the change of directors. And even though I was contracted, I said I was going to start on this date. I was going to work with John Nolan. I was like, okay, not happening. I got the call that Critters 2 wanted me, and it was actually kind of at the same time. And so I thought, well, this is a sure thing. This is really happening. I don't know when Teeny Weenies is happening. So so I went for Critters 2, and I'm really happy I did.
Yeah, okay.
Although, that would have been an interesting project too, for sure. But this one was just so much fun.
I find that interesting how many things start up and stop and start up and stop. And in the Fangoria thing, it said, I think Mick Garris had done some work on Amazing Stories, the Spielberg series. And so he had been signed to direct a movie for Spielberg that after they worked on it for like 8 months and it got canceled.
It's
funny
how
then this
work.
came across his desk. So it was a big drop from Spielberg, but it still was a good oppority. Anyway,
wasn't he also supposed to do Fly 2? He was going to direct.
He worked on this. Yes,
that's right. That's right. He directed this instead of directing Fly 2, but he did write the script. He worked on the script for Fly 2. Yeah. He has a lot of horror cred if you look at his IMDb.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it's now time for
52
Taglines with Chad.
Everybody take am I muted? No. Okay.
No such luck.
Okay. Everybody take a shot every time I say they're back or they are back.
Trying to kill us?
Taglines for Critters 2. Get ready for seconds. They're back.
They are. Yeah.
Okay.
It's everyone's turn for seconds.
Not just the critters.
Yeah.
Us
Okay.
too, I guess.
What, everybody's turning cannibal now?
Yeah.
Woof.
They're back for seconds.
Boy, they really get stuck on this like
that's
a dog
kind
on
of
a
similar
bone.
to the first one.
Yeah.
Critters 1 got your blood pumping. This time they want more than a taste.
Okay.
Okay, well,
Mm-mm.
it's a sequel.
The most illegal aliens of all are back, and they're hungrier than ever.
Okay, that's funny at
Yeah.
least, but I mean, it's actually a little too.
It
It
brings
hits
up
a
a
little too
different-
close to home.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay, like
Probably wouldn't sell
unfortunately,
now. Yeah.
Yeah,
Some people
unfortunately
would
now.
find that offensive.
And
They're undocumented. Okay.
1988.
That's just as bad.
That's worse.
Yeah.
And 1988, and we just didn't.
Okay, hit us again,
Yeah.
Chad.
We just didn't know. I think that was it.
Was that it?
Chad, I want you to know, I went in to translate all the foreign posters, but they were things like they've returned for seconds,
Oh.
instead
Oh.
of they're back. Or anyway,
Oh, yeah.
Completely different.
I spared. Yeah, pretty much.
You
Pretty much.
never should have admitted that to me, Jeff,
Why is that?
because it proves that you're just out to just bury me on here.
I am.
There's
I
You
just-
know, I mean,
Oh, wait till we get to the giant beam.
the giant what's behemoth is the number of credits they came up with.
And that's bad taglines with Chad.
Chad's our hero, cool and rad. With him reading taglines, they can't be that bad.
Yeah.
Ta-da! And now is the time on Sprockets where we look at posters.
Ooh.
There it is. Critters 1 got your blood pumping, and there's the giant. See, I didn't get that at all because that whole thing blew up, right?
Well,
How did they? I thought they blew up the barn, and then that whole thing.
They all- it was just like in Killer Clowns. They all hid in the refrigerator at just that moment.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I noticed that this actually looks like it has another tagline under the title on this poster.
This time they want more than a taste. What? How'd we miss that one?
Wait, no. Critters
No,
2,
no.
The
Oh, that
Maze
was
Runner.
everyone's.
for a second.
Yeah.
I see. That's right. This
Yeah.
had more than one tagline.
We got all those.
We got it. You
I
got
don't
it.
understand that though. It's everyone's turn for what?
Yeah,
That one doesn't make any sense.
No,
like
it doesn't.
truly.
once again, had a pizza, a bunch of cigars, beers, and they're throwing shit out, and it's like,
Eh.
okay, it's a sequel. It's Critters
Well,
2.
yeah.
That's the second. So
That's it.
seconds. Whoa! Seconds is like when you eat, and they eat, and they would not let go of that,
Ah,
Yeah.
idea.
It's
Yeah.
money in the bank. Yes, indeed.
I'm
Money in the
telling you.
bank.
Critters
These
the
taglines are
second.
gold.
All right. So yeah, we get the big ball of critters there,
Big ball of critters.
and there's a little bit of
All
call
Critters.
to the reference to the poster from the first one with those like star things coming down
Mhm.
or ships behind
Oh
it.
yeah, like the. Mhm.
The backdrop looks like it's the same that they put the.
Yeah.
All right, and this one,
I
just in
remember seeing this one.
I think
I
this
think
is the
this
movie.
is what I
poster.
remember seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they want to make sure you know it's the second one. So
they should have
Great
had
big-
him doing the little Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
great big 2 on there. This was just a big critter. And then we go to
This one to me is a mystery because it's a really freaking cool poster, but totally different from the
God, that's cool. though.
cartoony look. It's
really dark.
Isn't that great?
I
It
know
Mhm.
it
Looks
looks more like
spooky.
The Mist or something.
Exactly. That's
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
what I was.
Horrifying. Kind of like when they first came up with a poster for Killer Clowns. It was like a terrifying image
Yeah.
that they went with. And I have a video that has a somewhat different image here.
Oh, that
Oh, yeah.
reminds me of like Fright Night for some reason.
Is that the lenticular cover?
No, it isn't.
Okay.
Looks neat.
And then I also got this. I think it was either Target or Walmart. They had this 4-film collection
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
that was like $10 or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
sweet.
And
Oh, that's-
Yeah, I
inside it-
usually get
DVD,
those.
right?
They
Yeah,
give you.
yeah.
They do around Halloween. They do those cool cake
yeah,
covers.
that's what this
'cause
is.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, I got like 4 or 5 of those last year. They
Yeah.
do different colors every year. Like it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty neat. I don't have
All
the
right.
critters ones, but I'm gonna have to look for that.
Well, and this Ralph sent this, although I do have those electronically. The I think it was issue 74 in June of '88, or maybe
Yeah, June of '88. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. The cover girl, Critters
Mm-hmm.
too. Oh, and not only that, it was also
the fold out.
What?
Mango fold out, baby, huh?
Oh, cool.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
the-
How funny was
Awesome.
that bit that she had the giant staple in the middle of her belly?
Yes, that was good. Well, when who is it? Charlie too. When the thing starts changing to something else, was it changing to him? I don't remember who it was
Mhm.
changing to, but he quick grabs the Playboy and holds it
Yeah.
because he wants.
He did that a
woman.
couple of times.
Yeah.
First, so it wouldn't look like him, and the second, so it wouldn't look like the Freddy Krueger in the video store.
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
That's right.
right,
That's right. Just
right.
Freddy Krueger.
Freddy
He's
Krueger's
like, no,
scandal.
don't look
Not
at it. don't look at
that. Which is kind of funny because, of course, New Line Cinema put out both the Critters films and the Freddy Krueger Nightmare on Elm Street movies.
There was a reference.
It is called the house that Freddy built, or house that Freddy built.
Yeah.
Because
well,
they made so much money on those.
just throw a couple things in here too. The executive producer is Robert Shea, who was one of the founders of New Line, correct? And his sister is Lynn Shea, who is in this.
Yes, Sal.
And Barry Opper was the, I don't know, what do you call that? The line producer then, or the person was just regular producer. And his brother is Don Keith Opper, who played Charlie.
Yeah, every chance Bob Shea got to have Lynn Shea in a movie, he would tell people, put her in the movie, put her in the movie. And she never knew until much later that he was doing that.
Oh,
Well, and
that's nice though.
but she's
'cause
good. I think she's
Yeah,
so
good.
sure.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's excellent.
And actually, Charlie, Don
sweet.
Keith Opper was great too. I thought. I
Yeah.
loved the way. Let's move on there. So this is directed by Mick Garris, who horror fans should be familiar with. He's got a pretty well-known podcast. Is it called Postmortem?
Postmortem. And in
Yeah.
fact, if you're interested in Critters 2, there are 2 special episodes of his Postmortem
Oh wow!
where he has a reunion with people who were involved in the movie, like the actors and
Okay.
special effects people and such. And one is a 30-year anniversary and one is their 35 anniversary. So just look for Postmortem Critters 2, and that should get you to those special, the videos I have no extras. They have nothing. They're really bare bones. But instead of a commentary track, you can listen to these podcasts on Postmortem and really get some great stories.
Mm-hmm. And so he also did the miniseries of The Stand, the earlier one, and the Shining miniseries, Sleepwalkers, and Fly Twohy. He was a writer. What about Hocus Pocus? What did he do?
I believe he was a writer on that.
He was the
as well.
writer, yeah.
Okay.
And he also directed Psycho 4.
Ah.
And so here's the thing. I'm not the biggest fan in the world of his films. I mean, they're okay, but The Stand to me has never been done right. And of course I love
Did they cut
Shining.
something out of that story, Bill? Is that what happened?
Oh, I don't know. It's yeah.
Out of
So
the
long.
800 pages.
Well, I mean, yes, it needs to be a long miniseries, maybe multi-seasons. But I like him. He is a lot of fun. He loves horror. Whenever you see him pop up on a documentary talking about horror, it's like, well, he's one of us. He's someone who really loves this genre and has acquitted himself quite well. I think actually The Fly 2 and Hocus Pocus are really well written. I wish he would get maybe a project that could show, get a chance to show off, that love to better ends than what he's had.
Yeah.
But he's a really cool guy. And
Yeah.
and Ralph, since you're here, you could confirm this. Watching both Critters movies, you get the feeling this was a fun set to be on. I mean, I know it's a lot of work. Maybe it's not fun when you're the guy on the ground trying to make a critter look like he's biting a tire. But the vibe I get is that this was people who enjoy working with each other, having a good time, and they put that into their characters, and it comes across. Now you could tell me it was an absolute hell on earth, and everyone got food poisoning at the craft service table. But
Well, I did hear that M. Emmett Walsh was difficult in the first movie, and also the sheriff, the new sheriff. Let's see,
Barry Corbin.
Oh,
you mean the guy that got the bunny rabbit?
Yeah, the guy who wore the bunny suit. He was apparently Mick Garris, and he's really a sweet guy. He said, you saw how he was in that part. That's pretty much exactly his personality. That he was a really, I don't know, angry, bitter person or something.
Thought he was better than the material.
I should be doing Shakespeare. What am I doing in a bunny suit?
How did it come to this?
Oh, and while we're talking like that, I thought, Crystal, I'd give you this quote from Terrence. Terrence
Mann.
Terrence
Mann,
Mann,
yeah.
that's right, Terrence Mann.
Oh, yeah,
He said, movies will make you famous. Television will make you rich. But theater will make you good.
I agree with that 1000%.
And he did a lot of theater.
I did a lot of theater. I don't do theater. I haven't done theater since college because I want money.
Yeah, that is a little problem.
That's and I will tell you too, it's not even just that. It's time. Theater is it eats your life. Literally, when you get into a production, you spend there's a reason why everyone oh my God, I hope there's not too many theater people out there because I'm going to say this. It's very incestuous.
We don't have any thespians in the audience.
Yeah. Well. People tend to have extracurricular affairs and stuff in the theater because you're literally around these people all day for days and days and days. And
well, I'm sure there would be no love affairs on a movie set.
Oh, no.
No, but at least you're only you're
work.
like that for like 3 months or like, it's not like you get, well, I guess a show by then, but then you actually perform it too. It's just, it feels like it goes on forever and you get paid practically nothing.
And you have nothing to show. What I admire so much about theater actors is that when it's over for all your hard work, you've got memories. And that's it. At least with a movie, you've got something you could show your grandkids. Like, see, I used to be cool. And
I used to be young. I used to be young and charming. Honest.
They liked me.
Yeah.
They really
I had hair and teeth and stuff.
See, I knew he was brilliant because I totally agree with that. And I see the reason why, like, people, say, what would you rather do? I think ideally being on a television show that's on for years is like the ultimate. You're not going to be as big of a star, like an A-lister, like you would be in the movies, but a consistent, awesome paycheck for years would be freaking awesome.
And yet, how many of them give that up? McLean Stevens.
I know, that's
syndrome
crazy.
Like, I'm going to give up this role because I want to go make movies, and it's like, oh, dude,
mistake. Yep.
Well, and TV is different than it used to be with these streaming and cable shows. Some of them have a lot of money in them. Some of them are very well written, and they have production value, and really talented people. It's not like it was in the 60s or something. So I don't think there's any kind of stigma like there used to be.
Not now.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah, because people, TV. But theater is always seen as like the whole, it's always that artistic. Well, you may be poor, but at least you're an artist.
Go on with the show, baby.
No,
it's show business. Yeah.
I'm cool. I don't want to be a starving artist. I like money. Thank you.
I like eating.
Yep.
Yeah. It's often been said, a job worth doing is worth doing for money.
Thank you. For real.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Words of wisdom, Roy.
Okay. And speaking of wisdom, look at these
I have a book that says, do what you love, the money will follow. And I thought, what a load of...
That's what they want you to believe.
Yeah. All right. So, the Kyoto brothers at the top.
Yeah. That's Stephen, Charlie,
arranged
and
by
Edward.
size.
Okay.
They look like tribbles.
Yes. But they're feisty.
And that thing, I can't even imagine. So, how many of those things did they have to put on there? And how did they manufacture half critters?
We're only seeing half of them.
It looks like it's just
they're just faces there. Yeah, you don't have any arms or legs or bodies, torso.
And what Bill said too, that was awesome when it would, or maybe Chad said it when they rolled over that one guy and you see him laying there and the whole backside is blood and
now we can
skeleton.
thank two people for that primarily. One is Dwight Roberts, who was in charge of the mechanical aspects of the critters for Critters 2. He said, there's this big critter ball and it's going after people, but there's like no stakes to it. You need to see it do some damage, and you don't. It's just rolling and bouncing around. It should roll over somebody and leave just a skeleton. And I'm like, Dwight, you've got to tell that to Mick. You've got to tell Mick Garris, because that is a great idea. And Mick Garris is someone who doesn't have the ego that some people have.
Yeah.
If he hears a good idea from somebody else, he is happy to incorporate it. And thankfully he did. And I think that was a great scene. Now,
It was.
from a standpoint of like biomechanics and physics and whatnot, these faces rolling over you are not going to skeletonize your body like that.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Don't be doing science.
And it's
here.
still twitching a little
Yeah.
bit. No, not this time. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that top picture, I'm not sure. Is that top picture from the first Critters?
Mhm.
I'm not sure.
I could not tell you.
Because those little critter balls, I think those are smaller than any of the balls we used in Critters 2, but I could be mistaken. Because that,
So Ralph,
I don't know. Yeah.
my wife and I had a question. We're watching the film and we're seeing like the little critter balls going across the screen. And at first we're thinking, oh, there's just someone off on the side tossing them there. But then there's like a whole bunch of them going, and they're going at the same speed. And then we're like, is this like filmed on a hill? And you just have the camera set up so that they're all fall. How exactly was that done, looking so not fakey thrown or kicked off screen?
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so there were several ways to get these balls to move.
Oh, no.
So sometimes it was just people tossing them, and the balls inside were just foam, like mattress foam. And the Kyoto brothers figured out that if you put a chunk of plaster in there somewhere, that when you roll it, it's going to roll off to the side. It's gonna be a curveball. And so they could actually have them kind of go around a corner just by chucking it down there. It also could give it an interesting wobble. Then some of them were on monofilament line. You'd pull the monofilament and that would make them roll along. But you're talking about where you see a whole bunch of them moving in formation. They're not breaking ranks or anything. They're moving in a steady formation. And that is where there was actually a rig with wires, and wires would go through each of the critter balls like an axle, and these wires were all linked together with wires. So there was this frame that they all rolled together on. It was all like one unit. And so you would just tow that big construction behind a vehicle, and you would have all these critter balls rolling down the road.
That is cool.
That looked great.
Some people have claimed they could see the wires or something. I don't know. I've seen it a few times, and I think it's kind of hard to see them.
I didn't see them. Yeah,
it helps that it's nighttime. But yeah, I thought that was pretty clever. And here you can see this rig. So that they actually, we're not really talking about the story in sequence, but we got the picture, so let's talk about this picture. So there were several ways that they did the huge critter ball, which is at the end of the movie, spoiler folks. There was just for rolling scenes where it didn't have to do anything and you didn't see it in detail, it was like a big weather balloon that was covered with a bunch of fur patches. If it moves fast enough, you don't notice that there aren't snapping mouths on it. But for closer shots, where they're in the truck trying to get away from this big ball and it's like right up against the truck, then they had a construction like this. They had a geodesic dome that John Heil constructed, and there were little solenoids for the little mouths to snap. You know, solenoid is just a simple on-off electronic thing. And
I
so
was
they
like, I
could
have no
just,
idea what
they
you're
could just,
saying.
yeah, well, yeah, it's like if you push a button and it just goes, I think that's what they have to make, well, what they had in the olden days, if you remember when you would lock a door, the door locks, you would push this button thing down with a stem. Do you remember that, Crystal? Are you old enough for that?
Yeah,
When you lock the door by pushing a little thing down?
Okay. I'm sure I'm old enough for that, but no, I don't know.
Okay, anyway,
I'm so sorry.
I think they have a
never
solenoid
experienced it.
when you unlock the door for that little thing to pop up. And that's all it does. It's just, it pops things up or it makes things go down.
Oh, okay.
Go down,
Well,
just like that's what a solenoid does. And so these were mechanized in such a way that very simple, super simple electronic mechanism was operating these snapping mouths. I believe that's how that worked. And they had a motorized rig that was hooked up to the car, I think, to the chassis of the car, that would spin this ball with the little snapping mouths. And then they had a close-up of snapping mouths for when you wanted to really see more detail for the close-up shots. So there were several ways that the rolling balls were done. There are several ways that this big critter ball was done. Yeah.
Well, it worked.
Does that answer your question, Bill?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hire good people. That's how you do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, speaking of good people, Roxanne Kernahan and Terrence Mann. Yeah,
They were great. Now I wish there was more of them. The first one, I wish there was
Me
more
too.
critters. This one, I wish there was more bounty hunters.
Yeah.
they're all aliens to me.
So I know Crystal's got this big thing about Terrence Mann, but I don't understand. To me, Terrence Mann is the character that James Earl Jones played in Field of Dreams.
Look, he looks like Tim Curry. Okay. He
Yeah.
reminds me of
Okay,
Tim Curry
okay.
so much. And I don't think you can possibly understand my obsession with a young Tim Curry.
I do.
I
He's a
think I get the
man.
idea now.
Yeah.
He's a man.
Mhm.
Well, you don't understand.
man!
The Field of
He
Dreams.
is. He's a Terrence man.
He's
But he-
recently. So do you watch?
He's
He
so
was in the.
intense.
He was
Look
in the
at that.
series Foundation.
Yes. Yes.
Looks a little different. Little different.
He looks completely different, but
Yeah.
he's still sexy. Like he has a nice face.
That's what I was
Okay.
thinking.
He
He's
does.
And
sexy.
he's weird, honestly, and that's what I like. You know that
It's the hair.
if they're weird, yeah, they're kind of
Mm.
weird. It kind of works, but he's got an intensity. Look at his face.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's in this stupid movie, and look how serious. he
Hey.
I felt like he looked a lot older than he did in the first one for some reason.
is. I think his hair's a little darker here.
Yeah.
I like how he
Um,
doesn't break character. He does play it straight. And that's
Yeah,
it.
he does. Like
Good-
he's so
good choice.
serious.
The other one here is Roxanne Kernahan, and her bio says she greatly enlivened a handful of hugely enjoyable late 80s horror, science fiction, and exploitation pictures.
Mhm.
Yeah, she was in the
I
remake of
believe
Not
that.
of This Earth. She
Oh,
played-
wow.
I think she's the one who does the stripogram. You know how it is. Somebody
That's
knocks
the
at the
Tracy
door.
Lord, right? Is that the
Yeah.
one? With,
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
Tracy
Oh,
Lord.
and Angel 3, she plays a white hooker.
There you go.
Oh. I have
But-
not seen Angel.
But we
3, I
don't
get
cover movies like Angel on
No,
this show.
It's
Let
a
it go,
respectable
let it
joint here.
go.
Come on.
We do if Rory Calhoun's in him, and he wasn't in Angel 3, so you're,
so you're safe, Chad.
Oh, I feel perfectly safe.
I think that moved into the 90s anyway, so I
Ah.
think you're definitely safe.
Now I
Yep.
hate to bring it down, but she was in a car
Yeah.
accident that killed her at age 32.
yeah.
What a
Oh.
shame.
Oh no.
Yep, just a few years
Very,
after.
very
the
young,
movie.
yeah.
Yikes.
Sorry.
What
Oh,
a
that's-
face.
Well, no, that's sad
Yeah.
though. That's too
That's why
bad.
she wasn't in a lot more movies, I guess.
The
Oh.
yeah, and it's interesting. Terrence Mann talks about how he said this was a fun movie. It's not like, he said, not everything has to be Shakespeare.
It's the right attitude.
It was just a really fun movie to make, and
and he was fantastic. He was really awesome in both these two Critter movies, I think. What was it? His name was Johnny Steele in the first one, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Before he
was the
became Ugg.
musician. Yeah, he was the rocker.
Took the face and form of Johnny Steele, and that's why you get him in this one. Yeah.
So this is the main part of the rest of the cast. So the woman on the top picture on the left is Granny. She's that's her to wear.
She's awesome. She's so sweet looking.
She is. Yeah. She's very good.
Pushing her vegetables.
When they have the kids party, the Easter party, doesn't she say something to one of them about making a BM or something? Or
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it's like
you gotta have like a fiber. I think she was serving a cake for a birthday party.
Yeah. Oh, okay. She had all those healthy.
Lots of fiber in it for a good BM.
Fiber for a good BM. And I love the kids. The kids are doing. She's trying to do something constructive, and the kids are sticking crayons up their nose, and
all kinds of mischief.
The one in the middle is the Scott Grimes' sort of love interest, Leanne Curtis, who plays Megan. And
I thought she was adorable.
I
thought she was really appealing and so adorable. She's no Terrence Mann, but I thought she was.
Well, her character was
lovely.
set perfectly with that entrance where she gets out of the pickup. That told you everything you needed to know.
Can you describe that, Jeff?
Well, she parks right up to somebody where you can't get the door open, and then she just jumps out the window like ass first,
right?
And lets herself down on the hood of the vehicle and goes.
Now that is an entrance.
Yes. Anyway, she does a great job, and then
I kind of thought she looked better in the jeans, like in the jeans and the long sleeve shirt, and that. Then later on in the movie, she was dressed like she was a girl in the 50s or something.
Right.
Yeah.
It was sort of from a little on the frumpy side.
Well, the whole movie really, it's in some ways it's obviously an 80s film, but it kind of seems like everybody's in the 50s or something. I know it's a rural community, but there aren't many indications of the modern world.
No, they could be fighting the Blob.
I was thinking that exact same thing. It felt like they were trying to make it pretty blobbish.
Well, Mick Garris described this movie and other movies like Blue Velvet as Norman Rockwell in hell. You have these traditional, cozy, homey, rural communities, and what happens? Wow, something really bad ruins people's day, and in this case, it's critters. Norman Rockwell in hell.
So the next shot down is Barry Corbin, who I first got.
You did mention Scott Grimes, right?
Yeah. He did.
I mentioned him, but I didn't really talk about him. But yeah,
that's Scott Grimes.
And he apparently loved this role because the first one got him a lot of exposure and a lot more work. So he was all in.
He's an unusual child actor in that he kept on doing it, and he got better and better at it too.
Also,
and whoever did the Fangoria interview said that it was the most positive experience he'd ever had with a teenage actor.
That's nice.
That he was a very evenly tempered character that was serious about acting and anyway.
Yeah, you don't always see that in teenagers.
No.
So now Barry Corbin, I think I have this right. Wasn't he in Northern Exposure?
Yes, he got exposure too.
That's what I remember him. That's where I became familiar with him, and he's a cool guy, and he plays a cool guy here. Although I felt like at the end of the movie, he gets on the bus before everybody else. He goes, he does a whole scene where he's just hanging out the bus window watching and then shouting stuff at him every once in a while. It seemed like, geez, he's hanging out of that bus window a long time. Did he need to? It just seemed odd, like an odd choice to me.
You wouldn't have done that, Jeff.
Well, obviously, what would I know?
And the cool thing is when you hear him talk on the podcast, that he talks exactly like he talks in this
Yeah.
movie. I mean, that's him. He's not taking on some accent he doesn't know. I mean, that's the way he talks.
And they give him most of the best lines too. And he's playing the same character as M. Emmett Walsh played.
Yeah,
he's still
Right.
Harv.
Oh yeah, he's he's feisty, you know.
Well, I love when he comes out. It actually reminded me of Roy Calhoun and Angel when he shows up at the last minute with his 6 guns. Pew, pew, pew.
right.
Yeah, he shoots up all these critters with his 6
That was
guns, 6 shooters, and he yells. He says, "I'm back," and then he spits out some chewing tobacco.
Yeah.
he had some of the best lines.
The inspirational speech that gets the local yokels to shape up and go out and fight the critters. It's almost Shakespearean.
Yeah, he was so burned. He said, "You know, they voted me out of office. This town could kiss my ass."
Yeah.
So I really loved Charlie and Don Keith Opper as Charlie. And you guys tell me, when I was watching him, I think he was basing his physical performance off of Buster Keaton, because whenever he turned and walked around, he'd have his leg kind of kicked out. It was kind of it seemed just like Buster Keaton to me. I watched some of that recently.
Yeah.
Well, he
Definitely got that physical.
Yeah, quite a physical comedy performance, you know. Like you see him at the very beginning of the movie. I mean, we're doing this all out of order, but at the very beginning, you see them on this alien planet searching for a creature in this cave. And, you know, when he's back on the ship and he's taking off his helmet, you know, he's like stumbling and just very, very awkward and clumsy. And in the first one, he had a serious alcohol problem, but in this one, he was doing better. He was reformed because now he's a bounty hunter, so he was proud of himself. And he didn't need the bottle.
The way you're describing it, you're like, "Yep, he's somebody now."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a bounty hunter. Well, then I was a little twisted at the end, you know, because Ugg turns into him, takes him on, and then I don't know. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know he was staying behind. It seemed like he finally showed. Everybody thought he ran away scared at the end, but he was going to get the ship to come back and kill the critters.
Speaking of ships.
Yeah, what was that?
I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so Jeff, I don't know if people are a little confused because we're just talking about bits and pieces completely out of order. Yeah.
We are. We're not. We never go through the movie in order. Don't you ever listen to us, Ralph?
I do, but I don't
That's
really pay
true.
attention. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's the bounty hunter who had been played by Terrence Mann, right? He changed his face so that now he looked like Charlie. I think because he was the one who came.
Because he was wanting to take the place of Charlie because they thought Charlie was dead for a short amount
Right,
of time.
because Charlie seemed to have sacrificed himself kamikaze style by crashing the spaceship into the big critter ball at the very end of the movie. I hope people have watched the movie first.
Well, hey, spoiler podcast.
Oh yeah. Well, in fairness, it's how old now? Come on.
Yeah.
So, and before that, he runs away, and people, some of the townspeople think he's running away. He's a chicken, you know.
Well, okay. Now you're talking about the real Charlie, not the
right.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about the real Charlie too, when he came in and they thought he was dead, and he.
Oh, now.
Well, okay, yeah. Anyway. There were 2 Charlies at the end. It was confusing. No, but it made sense.
And then we have Eddie Deason at the bottom, which I've never
He's
realized.
Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah,
Right.
well, I didn't realize he was the voice of the know-it-all kid on Polar Express. As soon as he started talking, I was like, "Holy crap, that's got to be that kid!" And it was.
His best role ever was in Steven Spielberg's 1943 or 1940. No,
41.
44.
That was
41?
41.
Yeah, 41.
Yeah. Okay. I'm
I was about to
forgetting.
say 42.
But
So.
yeah.
Oh, that's the
Him,
summer of 42. Different movie.
him and the mayor of Amity Beach were in that Ferris wheel,
Yeah,
Mhm.
if I'm thinking of the right.
I'm gonna have to watch it. I haven't watched that
That's
for a
right.
long
There was a
time.
Ferris wheel.
Yeah, they were hilarious in that. And the Eddie puppet.
Yes, he had a ventriloquist dummy with
Yeah.
him on the Ferris wheel
Yeah.
with this guy who was terrified of heights. They were looking for Japanese submarines for invaders.
That's one of the best first 20 minutes, 25 minutes in a movie. in my opinion, it's one of the best. It's just hilarious. The whole Slim Pickens thing.
Mhm.
But anyway, we're not talking about that.
No.
So here's some Krites. Go ahead, Bill.
No, I was just gonna say he's a good actor. He obviously gets typecast because he's
You
such
think?
he's such a perfect type. I mean,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know that
Mhm.
if you're a character actor and you've got a look and you've got that voice and you can do that persona, yeah, you're probably not ever going to get cast as King Lear, but you can probably
leading
work
man.
your entire life because this character is, we can all relate to someone like that. And no matter how old he gets, it's like, what is this guy? What is a person like that? What are they like when they become an old geezer and they're in the nursing home and they're still Eddie Deason? So my hat's off to him. I Hollywood used to be full of that kind of performer that could
Bill,
play that role
Mhm.
throughout their, a whole career. And there's only a few like that now.
Remember impressionists?
Oh,
People who
yeah.
do impressions of Jimmy Cagney or Bogart or something.
Here's the thing
Boris Karloff.
that doesn't exist anymore because someone said, "Hey, I'm going to do a great impression of Brad Pitt." Unless they do maybe a Tarantino role or something. Brad Pitt's a great actor, but he doesn't have a Brad Pitt persona. There's nothing that
Mhm.
you could say to me and say, "Oh my God, that is exactly like Brad Pitt." Actors. Jimmy Cagney was Jimmy Cagney, whether he was a good guy, a bad guy, a cop, a showman. It was
George
Jimmy
M.
Cagney.
Cohan.
Yeah, and that's not the style of acting we have anymore. And I, for one, miss it. But oh well. So
I
hats off to Eddie.
just saw Eddie Deason in the live video about a week ago, and he doesn't look like he's aged a day. And it was he was at a convention somewhere, and somebody was doing like a fan video with him or something, and doesn't look like he's aged a day.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So the titular characters apparently are the title characters.
There's a lot of personality in these little puppets.
If they ever put out toys of the critters, that's the one I want at the bottom there.
The bald one.
Yeah, I love that guy. He's just hilarious.
He gets kind of scalped.
Yeah.
Oh, I could talk a little about the puppets now. The baby critters had very simple mechanisms. If you've ever seen toys like this, you get them at like zoo stores or museum stores.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you just move this little handle, and that moves the mouth.
Yeah.
That's exactly the kind of mechanism that I put into these critters, these baby critters, because you can't fit your hands inside of these things. So that's kind of how those were done. And the eyes of these things, you notice they have these glowing red eyes. I'm going to get biological for a second, so give me a moment. If you think about, you think of cat's eyes glowing or bird's eyes glowing or something. It's not that they're really glowing, it's that they're reflecting. Like you shine a flashlight on a cat and you're going to see those pupils light up because it's actually the light is reflecting from the back surface of the from the inside surface of the eye, the retina, and bouncing back out again. Now in this case, you'll notice that the pupils are black, but it's the area around the pupils that are glowing. And this is what tells me for sure that these are not earthly creatures, but these are some kind of space beings It could be that it's a bioluminescence, kind of like we have in deep sea creatures or something. But the way this was done, these eyes were clear acrylic balls, think of like a clear glass marble. And then the backside was painted with Scotch light. Scotch light is highly reflective material. It's like when you think of a street sign and how it shines the light from the headlights back very brightly. That's how these things worked. And then they had, transparent red glass paint on front, and then they would paint the black kind of stripe, the little slit eye. People
Scotch-Light was also the original idea for the lightsabers. They hoped that by making the lightsabers with Scotch-Light, they could shine a light on them and they glowed, and it just wasn't good enough, so they did some rotoscoping, which is what they were trying to avoid. I was always trying to get some cheap Scotch-Light because it was also used for like front projection.
Absolutely. That's what it was used primarily for. Yeah. So front projection. So rear projection is what they used to call a process screen. Rear projection is like when you have a translucent screen behind the actors and you project on the other side of the screen. So it's not like a movie theater setting. Mm-hmm. It's like the projector, instead of being on the same side as the audience, it's on the opposite side. And it projects onto a screen that's translucent. But in the case of front projection, the screen is on the same side as the camera, and the projection is bounced off of what's called a beam splitter or a two-way mirror, which is just a piece of glass that has some mirror to it, some silvering, but it's not completely silver, so you can see through it and you can see reflection very clearly as well. The reflection bounces off, but the camera is looking through the camera. The projection bounces off and the camera is viewing through this beam splitter at a 45-degree angle, and so the camera is seeing what's on the screen very brightly, because Scotch light works when the light is perfectly lined up with the camera. It works best that way. So that's why they have this two-way mirror piece of glass in front of the camera. I don't know if anybody understands what I'm talking about.
I did. The one question I have, this is we're probably going to get letters, shut up. What's the advantage of front projection over rear projection? This seems like it's more work than rear projection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
what is the advantage?
It's costly material. And in fact, I think that, I've played with Scotch light myself, especially in my student film days. My recollection was that you could not get it in a larger piece than 2 foot by 2 foot. Mm-hmm. But it was used for such scenes as the Dawn of Man sequence in 2001: A Space Odyssey with all those ape men, to give the look that they were in the middle of the African savannah. They projected that. It was, if you remember, it was a huge scene with many, many ape men.
Sure.
And there are a couple of advantages to front projection. One, you don't need a very bright light. So you can project onto a massive screen and you still get plenty of light enough to register on the film in the camera. It's less a problem nowadays that we have digital cameras that you can shoot in candlelight and that works. But back in those days, it was really important to get a lot of light coming onto that film, because otherwise you wouldn't get anything. The other advantage is you don't get the hot spot. You'll get a hot spot where if you shine through a translucent screen, there's a tendency to get a bright area in the middle, and the light falls off around the edges, so it gets kind of dark around the edges. You don't have that problem at all with front projection.
Cool.
And front projection has also been used in miniature settings for stop motion films. For example, Planet of Dinosaurs. All of the compositing was done in the camera, using front projection Scotch light material. There are other advantages, but it gets complicated, so I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Yay. That's...
There we go.
So back to one of the best scenes in the movie.
Ooh.
The grumpy new sheriff has to play the Easter Bunny, and he gets attacked in the garden. And in a really surprising scene, as the minister is preaching to the Easter service to the congregation, it comes bursting through the window, knocks over the statue of Christ, and knocks, I don't know, it's just great. Just ruins the whole
sacrilege.
Yeah,
right. But
yeah, it was a clash of the pagan bunny and the traditional, original Easter resurrection of Christ discussion. All there in that one scene. Yes.
So that's our last regular picture of the movie. So we'll look at some stuff here that Ralph's got some behind the scenes shots showing some effects work and things. If you want to explain those, Ralph.
Yeah. So, I was talking about how the little guys were like this. These were, of course, hand puppets, and they had advantages. The concept of these critters is in some ways much easier to work with than that of the gremlins. Now, with the gremlins, Chris Walas thought, if I have really big arms, you can rod puppet those things and you can see down to the elbows and you'll still be seeing most of the gremlin. But if you go and show below that, it had legs kind of like a dinosaur, kind of spindly legs. And if somebody was using it as a hand puppet, you'd see that there was an arm going up that butt. In the case of these, they're so shaggy and they're so pudgy that when they're standing there on the floor, there's plenty of room. And you can put your hand up there through a hole in the floor, and you would never notice that there was a hand going up there because the body completely covers that. And the feet are just little feet sticking out at the bottom of this mass of fur. Also, of course, they didn't have to walk. So they rolled around like balls, and that obviously made things a lot easier. You could show them locomoting all over the place, and they were just rolling around. Easy peasy. So anyway, we've got Charlie Chiodo here touching up the critters, and that's Deborah Galvez in the background there. She was involved in the hair work and some of the, detailing of the puppets too. And then down below you see a guy named Steve. What's his name? A guy named Steve.
Keller?
Yeah, that's right. Steve Keller, who was like a PA. He was, just getting started in movies, and he was helping on the Chiodo Brothers crew, and that's some plastic adhesive. It's like a contact cement that was used to put these things together and make repairs and such.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
there's Stephen Chiodo
Mhm.
at the top.
and is that's a scene in The Hungry Heifer?
Yeah, I think so.
He's laying back, relaxing with his hands.
Yeah,
up his
just
mouth, I
chilling.
guess, yeah.
Chilling like a villain.
And then this bottom shot is just kind of some clowning around. Is Terrence Mann working the critter there?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
somebody else back there.
That's Terrence Mann, I think, tormenting Eddie Deason.
Seem to be having fun.
Yeah.
And
Dwight Roberts, who was head of the mechanical crew for the Chiodo Brothers, he worked on all the four Critters movies that the Chiodo Brothers worked on, and he also was like the sort of shop foreman of the Killer Clowns from Outer Space crew as well. Specialized especially in the mechanical aspects of those characters. Yeah. And on the bottom, you've got all kinds of people. I remember these folks, but I don't know if I need to name them all off. But the one on the left is Edward, the third of the Kyoto brothers.
Oh, okay.
Oh, cool.
Just imagine these three brothers from Long Island.
Ralph's
They
kind of in the
got
middle.
along with each other well enough that they could keep doing these amazing
Mhm.
movies.
Ralph's in the middle there with a stocking hat on, I think.
Yes, it was cold, as we'll be seeing in a picture later.
All right. And here's Ralph doing some puppeteering.
Yeah, lucky me, I got to puppeteer.
He's on his, you're down and you're attacking Leanne Curtis. I think that's her with her.
Yeah, that's
with
definitely
her
her.
dress on and her pickup. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely her.
I kept yelling at them to roll up the damn window.
Yeah.
Nobody listens.
Yeah. So what happened actually is that we were supposed to bounce these fur balls, when it was just the furry balls, just bounce them off of the truck, and one of them accidentally got inside, and so Mick's like, okay, we can use that. We can have the critter actually having some contact with these people. And so that was actually kind of an improvisation based on
Okay.
a bad toss of a critter ball. Yeah.
And then the bottom one is where the critter bites the tire, and as the air is escaping, it blows him up. Is that?
Yes, it inflates the critter, and then it gets run over and flattened.
But this is the start of that, right?
Now someone has pointed out that there's an inconsistency here, because yes, it inflates the critter, which of course probably wouldn't happen anyway. But if it did
Of course
happen,
not. Yeah. Mhm.
if it did happen, would that not also flatten the tire, which was never shown?
One would think so. One would think so.
The tire's big and he's just a little.
It had so much
Yeah.
air. It didn't need all
Mhm.
that air.
It's
It
one
was
of those
fine.
self-repairing tires. Yeah.
But if that's what you're thinking when you're seeing this movie, you're thinking way
Right.
too hard.
Well,
the kind of movie.
I do have to say it crossed my mind.
Okay, Jeff, you're thinking way too hard.
It's just a matter of physics. All right. Well, that doesn't look fun to me. That's the side of it where you're
I had a nice ferny pad under me. I was comfy.
Hmm.
okay.
At least it was daytime. The nighttime
Well,
shoots
true,
are a little more
true.
rough.
Hey, when you're making a movie,
I would get a kinked neck or something.
when you're making a movie and you're a special effects guy, you might be neck deep in a swamp somewhere, but you're still having a good
So
time.
that's pretty good. Laying down is the upside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
So that's Brad Plow's puppeteering, and that would be in the Polar Burger, which is where they manufactured all the burgers, I think.
yeah,
Because
well, you
that
can
looks,
see a big
that
pile of
looks like
burgers.
a warehouse. They had piles of burgers. Now it was a lot of fun, but there was actual raw burger meat all about, and because the critters are such messy eaters, there were bits of raw burger flying all about, and from time to time they'd land in our mouths and we'd spit them out.
Ugh.
That's an ew. But the first shoot was like that. Then we came back a few days later to get some more shots. Well, you don't suppose they cleaned up all that raw burger in the meantime?
Oh, hell no.
Certainly not.
Okay, I take the first ew back. And
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
The flies were going to town.
Yeah,
I love that
yeah.
picture on the bottom. This just shows you how good the sculpt was.
That's why I
With-
included this picture. I wanted
Yeah.
you to see that.
It's like a Harryhausen puppet or something. Once you've made them, you can't really change the expression without a great deal of difficulty. So if you sculpt it well, correctly, just by angling the camera in different ways, you can give it that extra little hint of malevolence that you have there on the bottom, that gleeful evil of what it's about to do. That's terrific.
They did enjoy themselves, these critters.
I like that this one's mouth isn't completely open. It's got that Chuck Jones Grinch grin, Boris
Yeah.
Karloff grin going down. At the
Yeah,
bottom,
good call. You're
where
right.
his
That's
mouth's not completely open. And
There's blood spattered all over the background behind him.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you'll notice that these critters, their mouths are huge. Their eyes are way up front. We certainly don't have mouths that extend way past the eyes like these two. Now, you did see that in some dinosaurs, that they had these huge mouths, and the jaw joint was way at the back of the skull. And that's kind of how these are. I mean, they're all mouths, these things. And they have 3 rows of teeth, which makes them extra nasty.
Yeah. Well, so that brings me to because I remember thinking when they were showing some close-ups of those critters eating the raw hamburger, it's like, so somebody had to come along and like brush their teeth or clean that out, right?
Of
Right?
course, sure. Got to maintain these animals.
There's a job. I mean, anyway, that's very cool. I was thinking that same thing, Bill, what you were saying, because I thought this is where you design the face so that from different angles you get different emotions come out of it.
Yeah, but that they did have facial expressions. They had a lot of facial movement, and you can see that in the close-ups of them chewing and eating. Hey, here we go.
So you said that top hand was something you designed just not for a particular project. You were just trying to figure out how to do that, or
Right, exactly. Because from time to time, you want to make a puppet of something that is smaller than a human being, and so I came up with a way of fabricating a hand mechanism that was very small, and yet it had internal return springs. If you just you can't push with a rope or a string, right? But you can pull with it. Also, if you have a very stiff wire, you can't get it to make a very tight bend. So a push-pull cable that's very stiff isn't so suitable for something like these knuckles that have to make a 90-degree angle or something. So this was using what we call pull cables, where it's a very light and flexible cable. Now, to get them to return, I actually have some of the same type of cable material, the cable housing material that you see that looks like very, very tightly wound springs that you see like where my thumb is. And that's what's inside of these fingers. And then I took this plastic RC hobby housing, which is like a thin plastic tube that you would use on, say, RC airplanes or cars or something, as the housing for the cable. When I'm talking about housing and cable, think it's just like with a bicycle. You've got this sort of tube that the cable goes through, and that way you pull at one end and it's going to pull in at the other end. And so I use the springiness of the cable housing itself to make the finger spring back. And on the knuckles, you see that sort of banding. That's where it's actually, I had cut those little plastic tubes into a series of little rings, and then I slipped them back onto the spring or the cable housing that was first making it return. And that way it's flexible there, but where I don't make little rings of the tubing, it's stiff. So that way you get it only bending at those joints. So that's what I ended up doing. But the improvement I made that you see in the second picture, which is from an actual critter hand, is that I then wrapped. Okay, you can see how in the bottom picture there's cable going through these sort of series of fish line, Dacron line, white rings, and so there are actually 3 cable housings in a way that are on each finger. One is the one that's used just to make the springiness to spring back. The second is the yellow housing that's used for both the inflexible parts of the finger and the joints, where I cut that into little rings. And then there's another smaller cable housing that goes underneath that is stuck onto that plastic cable housing that makes up the fingers and joints, because you have to pull the cable through something. And then there's a little crimp at the end of it. So you just pull the cable at the other end, and it makes the whole thing spring back and forth. The reason that I added the Dacron line that I wound around, which was attached with epoxy, is that otherwise there was a problem that the little housing that the cable went through, and the housing that the springy cable housing went through would come apart. So to bind them together, I just wound them together with this 50-pound test Dacron fish line and epoxy. So kids, you can do this at home now.
Mhm.
Yay.
I really feel sorry for people who aren't looking at the picture, because it's going to be really confusing for most people.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Bill's supposed to describe all the pictures.
yeah, and you can see there's a wrist mechanism as well.
Yeah.
But I did watch the finished film just today, and I could see that at no point do you see the fingers or the wrists doing anything.
Well,
They had the capability,
yeah.
but you know,
Well,
unlike
the Xanti's fingers were articulating.
oh yeah,
slightly.
yeah, that's a different creature altogether.
Right.
And that the Xanti was created by Chris Biggs, not by the Kyoto brothers. And I think it's a beautiful, amazing, and wonderful thing.
Mhm.
But this was Critters, and the Critter. You notice it's not like Gremlins where they've got these really long arms and fingers. They have these little, almost vestigial arms. They kind of hang there like a prairie dog's arms or something. They're not good for a whole lot. And when you see them in action, it's always their mouth is doing something. You don't see their hands doing much. But I also made hand mechanisms for the larger critter that was actually Ugg transformed. And I also made finger mechanisms for the baby critters. And those finger mechanisms, the whole hand would fit on top of a border. They were really tiny, probably the smallest finger mechanisms you're going to see outside of a nanobot laboratory or something. They were tiny. But they were simpler than these. They were the old trick that I'm sure Bill knows, where you take a polyethylene tube and you put fish line inside of it with a knot at the end, and you cut little like V slots in profile out of the length of that tube, and then when you pull it, it's going to
We made tentacles that way once.
Yeah,
It was pretty cool.
That's the quick and dirty way of doing it.
So these are another.
Here we go for something else you didn't see in the movie. Yeah, Dave Meslow did when there were fancy mechanical joints that required the use of a mill or a lathe or something. Dave Meslow did that, and this is his walking mechanism. You can imagine as this little eccentric cam is moving this little knob around, is going back and forth in the slot, and that is making these legs move, just like it's walking. And you'll see at the top that there's a differential that translates the movement of the motor spindle to these two bevel gears, so that you can move both legs at the same time. They're out of phase, so they go walking. And the idea was, and I remember seeing them experimenting with this, you'd have the puppet itself supported by a couple of fish line or spider wire or something, and there would be like rails above, and you'd have to like move it across, and then the motor moves the legs. So as long as you keep it going at the right rate, it looks like it's actually walking. But you never saw that in the movie. Which actually, it makes sense you didn't, because all they have to do is roll. They don't need to walk around anymore.
Something they're thinking about. Well, that's the
fascinating behind-the-scenes mechanism, anyway.
The frustrating life of a special effects person.
It makes for a good portfolio picture, and that's the important one.
All right, and then I think, yeah, we have
There we go.
the,
Okay.
the
So yes,
head.
now one way that we really benefited. That's right. At some point between Killer Clowns, no, between the first Critters and Critters 2, Dwight Roberts had worked at Rick Baker's shop on Gorillas in the Mist, and so he was able to take the technology that he learned at Rick Baker's shop on Gorillas in the Mist, and we could use that for our critters, so that they're actually, you might not know it, but I could tell, they're a little more sophisticated than the ones you saw in the first movie. In the
Okay.
first movie, they're
Yeah.
much more often kept in the darkness. You don't
Right.
see them do as much with their faces. These ones were pretty mobile from a facial perspective, and you can see something about how this was done. So a mistake that some people doing facial mechanics make is that they'll have a cable that pulls inside the foam rubber lip of a mask or a puppet, and it only comes up at a little point, instead of looking like it's a part of your whole lip muscle system. So here, there would be this wire running all through the inside of the foam lip, so that if you pull it, it's going to move in a more graceful curve, so it really looks like the lip all belongs together, like it's really being manipulated by internal muscles, and so it has a more organic quality. Whereas if you look at some really bad rubber monsters, you'll see they have that problem where it's just a little point of the lip is going up or down. And so this helps with that. Another innovation, and boy, I don't know if anybody cares, but so this wire would stay inside of the puppet, but the skull inside had these cables coming out to manipulate those wires. And you can see these pieces of kind of like parachute nylon fabric, and those were glued to the insides of the lips. But there are these cables coming up that would actually manipulate that lip wire. And at the end of those cables, there was a little loop, and that loop could be just looped right around that lip wire and then detached from the lip wire whenever you had to change out the faces. Like if the face is torn up from, being violently attacked in the movie or something, you can replace the face and the lip wire stays inside, and you just have to loop this little end of the cable back onto it and, re-glue those little pieces of parachute fabric, and you're good to go. Yeah, and also notice that there are blinks for the top of the eye and the bottom of the eye. Some simple eyes, they'll just have the top of the eyelid move, but this had both the top and bottom eyelids.
And the eyebrow.
And the eyebrows move, right?
Yeah.
And you can see also that the shell or the skull is made of vacuum formed plastic. So that makes it very lightweight, which is helpful when you're trying to puppeteer these things.
Oh, bet.
Yeah, and they were all servo controlled. And another innovation that came from Rick Baker's shop was the servos could be radio controlled, which is typical for how we use servos, but they could also be hardwired. You could just clip on a wire to it, and the same radio controlled transmitter that would be used to move the servos, instead of going through radio control, would then go by direct electrical power, transmitting the movements from the transmitter to the servos inside the head, which is really great because sometimes there's radio interference. And so you really need, well, you can be out of luck if there's some kind of radio interference, which we did have, because sometimes these arc lights, these really bright lights that they use to fill in when you're shooting outdoors in the sunlight, you need a super bright light, and an arc light is what they especially used to use in the old days when the films weren't as fast. So anyhow, you turn on an arc light and the radios don't work anymore. It interferes with the radio signal. So anyway, that's way too much, but there you go.
And then on the bottom
yeah.
picture, you've got is that the mechanics crew or a variety?
Well, you've got the 3 Kyoto brothers, and you've got the crew that was fabricating and recognizing the puppets and puppeteering them. Yeah, and I don't know if you could tell from this picture, but it is snowing. This was the coldest winter in Southern California in 100 years. And that's especially fun for nighttime shoots. It was frequently 21 degrees outside when we were filming. So we could bundle up like this, but of course the actors have to be in their proper outfits.
Right.
But I understand that Leanne Curtis would wear like 2 layers of thermal underwear underneath her outfit so that she could stay warm and survive the experience.
Well, that might explain the dress.
Yeah, well, well, yeah, she could wear the long pants and still run out underneath. But anyway, it was pretty cold. Not just when we were shooting, but the shop itself. We'd have space heaters, but it was still cold. So I'm from Illinois, so I knew how to bundle up. I had lots of layers. Yeah, so that was rough. Kind of how cold it was. Hey.
All righty. Well, final comments about Critters 2. Anybody?
If you like Critters 1, you'll probably love Critters 2.
Yeah.
Better than the first.
That's true.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If you didn't like Critters 1, you might like Critters 2.
It's possible.
Yeah.
If you want to see more critters, if you wanted more humor, you get more critters and more humor from Critters 2.
Well, I love the ending of it. So when he throws him Barry Corbin throws his badge to Charlie. Yeah. Harv throws his badge to Charlie.
Yeah. So Jeff, you probably appreciated the Western movie influence on this.
Yeah.
This movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I love the shootout. It reminded me of Rory Calhoun and Angel.
Ooh, there we go.
Anyway. All right.
Yeah.
Let me describe for people listening. Chad just shot him a look like you couldn't believe.
That look is like goes on the whole episode.
Well, let's see. I would say that there are diminishing returns after Critters 2. Yeah. That the third one is not so great, the fourth one not so great, and then there were a couple of other things. There was Critters Attack that came out in 2019.
Oh yeah,
that was a made for sci-fi movie, very low budget.
Oh,
and the Kyoto brothers were not involved, so the critters don't look as good. And then there was Critters: A New Binge, which was a 8-part, 10-minute episode miniseries.
Oh,
that is also. Well, I've heard it's not as good. I haven't seen those two.
I'm sure it's not. Like,
yeah,
I feel confident saying that. Actually,
the Kyoto brothers were not involved, so the critters weren't as good. So,
I did want to mention that this movie looks really good, and the cinematographer is Russell Carpenter, who won an Oscar for Titanic.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
And also did Avatar, The Way of Water, Ant-Man. So
nice.
Yeah, resume. And this was the feature directorial debut for the director Mick Garris. I think he acquitted himself quite well. He had written and he'd also done some directing for Amazing Stories, and he's had quite a career since then. The music was the first time that the composer had composed a feature film, I think. I think the music is quite rousing as well.
Yeah, it is. I enjoyed the music, and I had the composer right in front of me, but I scrolled away from it. Nicholas Pike.
Nicholas Pike, yes. Yeah.
All right. We do have a few short pieces of feedback. So let's start with Chad. maybe, or maybe Bill. Let's start with Chad. Episode 242, Fear No Evil. Jill DiNardo.
Jill says, I love this movie. The best soundtrack in horror history.
Do you remember that soundtrack?
I do not.
I think it had some cool music.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to check that out again. Episode 257, Crystal, and I don't know how you say this.
Mega Ike Dog? Mega Ike Dog?
Maybe.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
The boring parts of this with the pirate, wolfman, and wizard are made up for with the awesome variety of monsters. Okay, I agree. The farting muckmen made me laugh so hard, and stupidly funny lines between the old young people. Yes. Okay, I get it.
It's a trip.
Well,
Yeah.
Spookies has lots of stupidly funny lines, I think.
Yeah, a pirate, wolfman, wizard. Yeah.
And then we have a couple from Critters. Bill, could you take Jose?
Sure. Jose says, this is yet another that I looked at on the shelves when I was working at the video store, but I've never seen it. No matter how many horror movies I've seen, there are always plenty more, some well-known, that I need to see for the first time. Well, you're a lucky ducky then, because I wish I could see all these for the first time again.
I think we've
fun.
gone through
These
a
are
bunch
actually-
of these.
Yeah, these are pretty decent. Like, I think these are definitely worth it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, I mean, I'd recommend them to anybody, any 80s horror movie,
Mm-hmm.
aficionado or whatever, you know.
Or
Sorry.
whatever.
Or whatever, you know.
Maybe.
You know.
And then we had
I
one
mean,
on Facebook, a comment to Critters from Ralph Miller.
Who's going to read that?
Ralph?
Ralph.
Only Chad. Yeah, I give it to you, Chad.
Have I done your voice before?
Does he have a particular voice? I mean,
I think so. I think so. It goes a little something like this. If you're ever inclined to cover Critters 2, let me know. It's a fun movie, and I worked on it. It's also a solid Easter horror film, right up there with The Night of the Lepus.
That sounded more like
is
Vince Russo, but
ridiculous.
okay.
Yeah.
I swear, Chad, I closed my eyes and I thought
Wow,
it was me talking.
Yeah,
That was
uncanny.
amazing.
No, it was.
Thank you. Thank you
Totally
very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I-
Please
Totally.
don't make prank phone calls with that voice and get Ralph in
Oh my
trouble.
God.
So who says we're not responsive? I
Mm.
should have looked at. I should have remembered that, but it didn't cross my mind, and I hadn't looked in detail at the credits yet. And I saw that and went, "Damn!"
It's okay,
No.
Jeff.
I
You're not my
texted-
mother.
I
You don't have to
texted-
know everything I did.
Yeah.
That's good timing, though. Like, because I did decide to do it right away. I was like, oh God, we got to do the next, because they were both showing at the same time.
Yeah. Well, it's fresh in our minds.
Well,
Let me
thanks.
tell you,
That was
there's
sweet.
one movie I want to do as soon as it ever comes streaming, but I don't think it's ever going to go to streaming, and that's Looker. I love Looker.
Oh, wow. Looker.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
hey,
do
wow,
remember
that's way
that.
back.
Very
I have
stylish.
been looking for it forever. Yeah.
Well,
Looking
we'll
forward.
be out and about too. So, thanks, Jose. Thanks, Mega Ike Dog. I guess Mega
Yeah.
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 Meg.
Magal? I think it's got to be Mega Ike Dog.
Miguel Key Dog. No.
Meow
And-
Dog?
And Jill DiNardo.
10
we
days
appreciate the
later.
comments. We
10
do
days later.
appreciate the comments.
Maybe it's spelled Mega Ike Dog, but it's pronounced BT Wappelganger. I don't know.
Yeah. That
So,
sounds about right.
Plenty of ways to stay in touch.
Mhm.
Please leave your feedback on the Gruesome Magazine YouTube channel, or you can send emails to feedback@gruesomemagazine.com. And we love our feedback. So
Yes. Totally.
let us know how we're doing, or if you've got questions or things you want to bring up that we didn't say. And that's it for this episode. Well, we also have a Patreon.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you know what?
That's
I know something else I skipped
Yep.
early on. So we partner with Play Now Media, and they carry our Decades of Horror on some of their streaming channels. And in particular, Decades of Horror of the 1980s is on the Wicked Horror TV channel. And you can, if you use the promo code DOH80, DOH all caps 80, you will get 20% off your first payment if you are a first-time subscriber, and you have to subscribe at their website. So basically, you could just search Plain Out Media, and you'll find them in there. So Wicked Horror TV. The monthly fee is $6.99, so you'd get about $1.40 off your first month. But if you signed up for a year, which is $50, you'd get $10 off. So that's the way I would go. $40 for a year is a pretty good deal. And a lot of the films we do are on some of their other channels, or on some of their channels. Well, Decades of Horror, the classic era and the 1970s are also on Wicked Horror TV, and the classic era is on the classic sci-fi movie channel and the classic horror movie channel as well. So check those out.
Sweet.
That's it for this episode. Yay. But what are we doing for our next episode? Another movie from 1980 to 1989.
We're going to do Intruder from 1989.
Oh, wow.
Sam Raimi crew and
awesome.
The Slasher in the Supermarket.
God, it's been a long time.
I have not actually seen this. I don't think.
Prices aren't the only things that are slashed.
Yeah,
That's
there you
right.
go. That's probably actually a tagline for real. Mm-hmm.
Our
It's
prices
actually
are insane, and so is
Pretty good. Well,
Yep.
Ted and Sam Raimi both have parts. Who else? Bruce Campbell plays
course.
a cop. L.V. Mohr plays a cop. He was in Green Acres. He was the county guy. Mr. Kimball, was it?
Yeah.
That sound right? And was in Boy and His Dog. Involved with that. So anyway, and then there's a couple other people in there that we'll recognize. One of the Estevas siblings.
Amelia.
Anyway, check that out, and it's on Shudder. I just Joe Bob just did it here a couple of weeks ago. That's when I renewed my acquaintance with it. So catch us here again in 2 weeks for another great horror movie. The 1980s is only Decades of Horror can do it. Thanks so much, Ralph.
My pleasure.
Thanks
Good to see you, Ralph.
In here.
Yeah.
It's a blast. I love my peeps.
And
Thank you,
thanks
Ralph.
everybody for being flexible again. I'm
sorry.
Are nothing if not flexible. No reason to be sorry. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Say good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night,
Good
everyone.
night.
Night, everyone.